Today's topic is loneliness. It is a serious topic. And I wanted to start by simply asking you this question so that you could relate with the topic. Because now you are here in the church, and we are so blessed to be in the church, and many of you came in couples or in three and with your friends, and so maybe loneliness is not what you are experiencing right now. Maybe those who are with us online, they much more are immersed in that experience at this moment. But the question I have to you is, what's the loneliest you've ever felt? Give yourself a moment. What's the loneliest you ever felt? About 2 years ago, I felt very sad reading an article about a certain lady from Spain, Madrid, whose death went unnoticed for 15 years. With no close family, no friends, her body was left to mummify in her own apartment for nearly 2 decades. Nobody called, nobody came to visit, nobody cared for 15 years. A terrifying image of the world we live in. And then my terror was multiplied because I started finding these new articles which were telling the same stories about different people. So it's not just one story like that. We live in a broken world, full of lonely people. The loneliness of little children who, already in the wombs of their moms, feel unwanted. The loneliness of teenagers who just stop having the connection with their parents and with their friends, with their hundreds of friends who are only virtual. They cannot really connect. They cannot share their heart with. They cannot share their doubts, their fears, and they cannot even share who they are. They just put a mask on. The loneliness of college students, of young adults, who might feel there's something wrong with them because they haven't found the one yet. They doubt their self-worth. The loneliness of married people who suddenly realize that their other half is actually not fulfilling all their desires. And even though they are in marriage, they feel super lonely. The loneliness of the elderly, who are sitting sometimes for weeks, staring into the window or into the door, hoping that someone will come in to visit them. The loneliness of sick people, imprisoned, refugees. And I could go on and go on. The loneliness of our God, who's left alone in cold tabernacles, in dark churches. He cried to Saint Faustina once, saying that my heart drinks only of the ingratitude and forgetfulness of souls living in the world. They have time for everything, but they have no time to come to me. Many, many faces of loneliness, that dark, painful, heartbreaking loneliness, which we also call abandonment. But surprisingly, there is also another loneliness, that one which is filled with light and with presence. And in English, you call it solitude. That's the good kind of loneliness. Well, not, it's really good. It's really good. So being alone is not always bad. We will talk about that later on. But first, let us enter into the pain of loneliness. That loneliness which you experience when everything your heart is aching for is actually the presence of your loved ones and it's not there. To understand anything that's happening in us, humans, we, I believe, always first need to refer to the perfect human, to Jesus Christ. In him, everything becomes super clear. I mean, following Jesus, reading the gospel and entering into his mystery through your own prayer and then through the writings of the saints, you realize that you start understanding yourself better. Like this man makes your life so much clearer, so to say. Everything starts making sense. When you follow his footsteps, he explains everything, not only with words, first of all, through his example. And so this perfect man, he experienced loneliness as well. He experienced abandonment to that dimension that none of us will ever experience it. He, being fully human, he needed friends. He needed the presence of those whom he loved. And actually, before he came to Faustina with the private revelations she received for the world, he came to Saint Mary Margaret Alacoque, basically reminding us through her that I have a heart. I have feelings. I need you. We usually are so fixed and focused on ourselves and our needs that it's so hard to believe that actually God may need me. That it's not only that I feel lonely, he feels lonely because I'm not there for him. Seriously, you might want me, like you have everybody. And you have all the saints of the world. And you have the perfect ones, the good ones, the heroes. And you need me. The fact that I cannot love myself doesn't mean that he doesn't love me. The fact that I doubt that anybody needs me doesn't mean that he actually doesn't need me, because he does, desperately. To Saint Faustina, he said that he's focused on her heartbeat to that extent that he listens to every heartbeat, waiting that this heart will beat for him. Jesus' need of friends, his need of other people in his life is especially evident in the last days of his life, as the greatest suffering is approaching. And side note, suffering is the time when we need friends the most. And the paradox or the irony of this world is that when we suffer, usually this is when we are left alone. And the reason many times is because the good people around us, they don't know how to behave. And so they decide, I will better not come in, not to bother that person. I will better not come to him, call him, because I don't know what to say. He's in so much pain. I really don't know what to say. Well, say nothing. Just come. You really don't have to say anything. Just come. And you don't have to solve their problems. Just come. They need your presence. That's it. I wish I knew it before, when I remember those moments which I regret so much now, that fear paralyzed me. I thought I have nothing to give to her, to him, whereas I could just be. And Jesus needed, come on, when he took James, Peter, and John to the Garden of Gethsemane, he didn't need them to explain passion to him or to comfort him with words or to really do something. Like Peter, in his fiery love, he, took the sword and attacked the soldier. But Jesus said, no, that's not the presence that I need. I don't need you to fix my life. I just need you to be with me. Just be. And it's amazing that Jesus knew that his friends will abandon him. They will all leave him. And in the cenacle, when they gathered together on this Last Supper, and it was so amazing that he expressed his desire. I desired deeply to eat that supper, that dinner with you before I will suffer. He really needed their presence, the comfort of their presence before he will enter into suffering. Even though he knew they will fail, he knew it. He said during the Last Supper, he said, "You will leave me alone. Yet I'm not alone, for my Father is with me." And then came this final moment at Golgotha when the unspeakable happened. Jesus' abandonment reached its peak when he said, my God, why have you abandoned me?" This is the most heartbreaking cry that this world will ever hear. Even though he knew everybody will abandon him, his close friends, his disciples will all run away, but he always had that comfort, the Father is with me. You will all leave me alone, but the Father is with me. And in that last moment, that was not given to him. That feeling, that experience of the Father's presence who's always there for him, even that was taken away. And the Bible says that Jesus loved us to the end. And we usually read these words, okay, to the end means to the cross, because he gave his life for us. But when I read these words, now in the context of loneliness, I see that they mean to this darkest corner of human experience of suffering, which is total abandonment. There's nothing that we fear more than that. We don't fear so much physical suffering. We don't feel so much losing all our money, losing our job, Third World War, second pandemic. That's not so bad as the thought that I may actually be totally, completely abandoned by everyone. Alone. People who experience that, this is when they commit suicides. There's just darkness, nothing. And I was wondering why Jesus would enter that final desolation, that total abandonment. Why would he enter that human suffering to that extent? We know this, that it was not needed to save us, but he still chose that. Why? The explanation that speaks to my heart the most is that he wanted to sanctify even the darkest corner of human suffering with his presence. Everywhere that we go, to the darkest places, to the darkest experiences of humans, He is already there, waiting to meet us. Our darkness will never be as dark as the one he experienced on Golgotha, because he's there. He fills this darkest darkness with his presence. And actually, in those moments when we experience greatest suffering, which for us may feel like total darkness, no hope, no meaning, no love, and in those moments, we can be united with God in the most intimate way. If you heard some of my other talks, you will probably be not surprised with this quote that I want to remind you again and again, because this quote keeps on not persecuting me, but how do you say? Following me and tormenting me, because I still don't get it. Well, I get it, but I don't get it, Here I understand, here I don't. Faustina says, if the angels were capable of envy, they would envy us for two things. One is receiving the Holy Communion, and the other is suffering. Suffering. Angels would envy, if they could envy, they would envy suffering. Why? Why Holy Communion suffering? Well, my brain tells me that it's because they unite us with God in the most intimate way. And all we want is to be happy, but like to be fulfilled in happiness, to be filled with happiness from the top of our head to the longest toe, like really filled with happiness. That's what we desire. And that happiness can only give us union with God. We are created for it. And the final response to the deepest cry that we call loneliness is the union with God. Our need of love is undeniable. Everybody will confirm that, no matter the religion. We just need love. The presence of a loved person gives meaning to all our actions. There is this vast void in our hearts that needs to be filled with somebody's love. Now, I want you to recall for a moment the heart's anatomy. Are there any doctors here? Nurses? Or any of you had biology classes maybe in high school, and maybe you didn't sleep through them, so you actually remember the heart's anatomy? Don't worry, I will not enter into details. I just want you to recall that there are actually two ventricles. Two ventricles, not one. And that's important even for the metaphor that the heart is. In physical, in our body, in the organ, those two ventricles, they need to be filled with blood to go on. In the spiritual meaning, in the heart that symbolizes our whole inner self, those two ventricles, they need to be filled with love. Love. But there are two ventricles. Why? There's one love. But this love, one ventricle, needs to be filled with love of human beings, especially such important figures like mother, father, spouse, child. And the second ventricle, the one that's actually bigger, much bigger, needs to be filled with the love of God. And please remember that the heart has two ventricles, two chambers, because we need to be deeply aware that our heart will cry for love, but there will be two different cries, and we need to learn to distinguish them, not to suffer unnecessarily. There are so many people who suffer for no reason, just because they cannot distinguish those two chambers, so to say, that there are two cries of their hearts. They are different. The response is different. The fulfillment is different. The problem is that nowadays many people deny the existence of God. So they also deny their need for God's love. A well-known Polish priest, Father Krzysztof Grzywocz, even the name terrifies you, right? Krzysztof Grzywocz. But he's not a... Whoops! Stay there, please. Father is not a terrifying person at all. Actually, he died a couple of years ago in the opinion of sanctity. A great man. He was not only, I would say, like a researcher of human hearts, but his theological knowledge that each priest has, he also enriched with psychological knowledge, and therefore, to listen to his talks, you would get so much from his talks. I would get so much from his talks. And in one of his talks, when he spoke about loneliness, he said, "I may or may not believe in God, but it does not change the reality that God is, and my need for a relationship with Him is in me. I can admit it or not. I have the right to do so, but my need for a personal relationship with God is a fact. Therefore, when I depart from God, consciously or not, I doom myself to endless hunger, to helpless loneliness. If a person does not know about it, his condition worsens." Many people say God does not exist, or I do not need a relationship with God, or they simply have a very superficial, ritualistic relationship with God. And they are not aware of the endless loneliness they carry within themselves. And then a very dangerous thing happens. A person tries to fill the loneliness he feels within himself, the loneliness of the lack of the encounter with God, with another encounter, with a human being. And he falls into a trap of super high expectations from a human being, expecting simply the impossible from another person. When one tries to fill this hunger reserved for the divine person with a human person, a terrible drama of disappointment begins. End of quote. Isn't that the reason of many divorces nowadays? It starts with disappointment because that person doesn't fulfill all my needs, and of course it never will. And after the disappointment comes the time of blaming each other. Oh, if you would do this or if you wouldn't do that. And we really try to change that person, believing that his or her change will actually fix the problem in me, the hunger for God and His love. And it never happens. Then there's divorce after divorce, new hope after new hope, and new disappointment after new disappointment. The second problem that occurs is when we actually recognize the longing of our hearts that, okay, now my heart is actually calling for the love of another person. And I know it and I recognize it well. And I enter into relationship, 1, 2, 3. And I still feel that painful loneliness and I don't know what's happening. And often at times, it is basically this drama of 21st century that our relationships are superficial, that they are egocentric, that hunger cannot be satisfied with something which is on the surface. We are longing for deep friendships, both with God and with other people. Many young people are leaving church nowadays, or they call themselves nuns, right? Nuns. They belong to nothing, no religion, there's no God, because they feel there's just tradition or ritual doesn't fill the hunger of my heart. And I need something deeper, and nothing deeper comes, so that means there is no God. We need those deep relationships, both with God and with other people. We not only need to reveal our heart to someone, we need to have that person with whom we can be completely honest and not to be afraid to say about anything, knowing that he or she will still be there for me, he or she will understand. We need to be also that person to someone, to give that kind of friendship that this other person knows that you can call me anytime, in the middle of the night. If you need me, just call me and I will be there for you. There's that moving story I heard from another Polish priest, Father Pawlukiewicz. He shared a story about a married man who had an affair. When one of those nights when he met with that other woman, he returned home hoping his wife will not be there yet. There she was, and she knew everything. She simply packed her bags and left. And the man was devastated. In that one moment, he understood the grievous mistake he had made. He called his friend. And he didn't even say what happened, but the friend, just hearing his voice, the sound of his voice was enough. He knew something very bad happened. So he just said, okay, wait for me there. He left his bed, he got into the car, and in no time he was there with his friend. They spoke for a long time. Then he simply advised his broken down friend to go to sleep, then get up in the morning, take a shower, and go to confession. In the meantime, he would try to find his wife and talk to her. They met the next day in the afternoon. The friend managed to speak to the wife, and she said that she was not ready to meet her husband yet. But as the friend said, that yet gives hope to save that marriage. So he gave another advice to his repenting friend, saying, clean the house, cook dinner, pray, and call her. Call her, hoping that she'll come. If she won't pick up, if she won't come today, repeat all these things tomorrow. Clean the house, cook dinner, pray, call her. She won't come the next day, try another day, and another day. What a great friendship these two men had. There's that space in us that needs to be filled with a deep friendship with another person. And there's that one that needs to be filled with a deep friendship with God. And the beauty of Christianity is that our spirituality is a spirituality of deep connection with God and with one another. How lucky we are to be Christians. and how lucky we are to have brothers and sisters in faith around us. One of the gifts we discover in the painful experience of loneliness is this realization that the other person is a gift. During the pandemic outbreak, just like Sister said at the beginning of our meeting today, many of us experienced this painful isolation that hopefully brought us to this realization: I need people. I love them. My friends, where are you? Come, I need you. But that's not even enough. I really hope that the pandemic was some kind of, and still is for us, like a wake-up call to see the other person as a gift, not only those that we chose to be our friends, but to discover people around us who simply God puts on our path for some reason, that they are gifts for us too. There's this beautiful meditation on givenness that John Paul II wrote. Please remember that title, Meditation on Givenness. Google it. It's just a few pages, but it's a beautiful personal sharing of our dear Pope about the other person as a gift. It's a lot taken from his theology of the body, but I precisely am moved when I read it again and again with how personal it is. He starts the meditation with these words: can one man say to another, God has given you to me? As a young priest, I once heard my spiritual director say to me, perhaps God wills to give that person to you. These were words of encouragement, urging me to trust God and accept the gift of man, accept the gift one man becomes for another. The paradox of the world we live in is that it's a world filled with lonely people who are somehow locked within themselves with their loneliness. And actually, on their right, there's another lonely person, the same, locked within his or her own loneliness, and on his left is another person suffering the same. We live in a world of perfection, where high standards and expectations make us unable to see the good. And so often, good is not good enough. We keep on searching for the perfect person, not only to become our spouse, but even to become our friend. We don't want to invest our time in a person which might not turn to be the greatest friend ever. And so we end up having no friends at all. Just think about some people who live near you, or who work with you, whose paths somehow cross with yours here and there. Maybe you don't even know their names. Perhaps God wills to give that person to you as a friend, or maybe even as a spouse. Just give it a chance. Invest your time in getting to know that other person. There are no coincidences. That person is crossing your path for a reason. That person might be a gift for you, and you might be a gift for that person. Continuing his reflection on givenness, John Paul II wrote, we would be in grave danger were we to be unable to recognize the richness in each human person. We are so harsh in making selections. We can really miss gems, undiscovered gems. There are many people who will remain undiscovered gems, and on the other side of the life, we will only see, wow, and she was my neighbor. Wow, and he worked with me. What a loss. Perhaps God wills to give you that person. Still, you might tell me, sister, there's literally no one right now there in my area, near to me. I know all the people, there's really no one to enter into deeper friendship with. And I agree, there might be some times when there's literally no one there, or maybe not a chance to enter into a deeper friendship, like the months of pandemic simply made it impossible. Like, how deep into friendship can you go through phone? And you need this personal encounter. So, yes, there are times when literally we cannot connect with other people. And why? Why does it happen? Why does God allow this to happen? There's one thing that comes to my head first, is simply we need to learn to be with ourselves first before we will go to the other person, but before we will invite other person to our lives. There are so many people who make that mistake also, that they are hungry for love and therefore being super immature and just expecting that this person will give, they enter into relationship, whereas they are total mess. And that's not yet a time of building mature, deep relationships. Fix the mess in you first. And maybe the alone time that God is giving you is to face your own demons first. To get in touch with your inner self first. To know who you are first. And then you can become a gift. Prepare the gift for the other person. There's that good loneliness which you call in English solitude. And that's this loneliness, that this being alone but not alone. This is the loneliness filled with the presence of the one our hearts are longing for the most. Remember those moments when Jesus was nowhere to be found? When everybody was searching for him and he was just gone. Sorry, I need my time with my Father. Even his disciples didn't know where he went. He was like, no guys, not now. We need the alone time to also become ourselves, become who we are. Not only to clean the mess that's in us and to face the demons, but even to discover the beauty that's in us, to even know who we are. We need the alone time for that. Each one of us is like a big, raw marble block, shapeless. And we need a talented sculptor to reveal our unique beauty, our concrete shape. And sometimes we may think the sculptor is cruel in the relentless way in which he chips at us, and often particularly at our most sensitive spots, and again and again. And the sharp tool he uses, often at times, it's loneliness. And the sculptor is God. I believe that in those times when we are alone and it feels painful, it feels like abandonment, by the grace of God we can transform those experiences into something constructive, into something creative. We can embrace those moments, trusting the sculptor, and by His grace, transform poison into blessing, and abandonment into solitude. Summing up, let us not be afraid of loneliness, of being alone. Let's welcome it as a good friend, though challenging friend. And if that friend comes knocking to the door, let us invite him in. Ask him to take a seat in a comfortable armchair, make him tea, and speak to him. Speak to that loneliness. Welcome, old friend. I knew you would come again. What is the mission you came with this time? How shall we spend this time together? There's always a reason for the alone time. Often it is not what we choose, but it simply comes. But just as unexpected or even unwanted guests may turn out to be the best ones, let us allow the times of abandonment and solitude to shape us into beautiful masterpiece that our Father created us to become.